Hello and welcome back to Speed Demon Painting. Exciting news as we get our first look at what is to come in the initial release wave for Armoured Clash. Normally you would expect the blog post to come alongside with these releases, but for some reason that has been delayed ever so slightly, probably because it is such a massive release, but you can find a lot of info on the Occam Distribution website, which is the new name for what used to be Warcradle Distribution. When the blog post does come around, I'll be sure to link it in the comments below so you can have a read through everything and probably get a few extra tidbits about the background of everything. This is just going to be me giving you a first impression of what is to come in each of these boxes. If you're interested in starting with Armoured Clash, well, definitely subscribe to the channel for future updates because I will be covering this extensively, including paint guides and everything. But there are two sorts of levels that you can get into this game. The first being an introductory set, and there are two variants. There is this central one, the two-player introductory set, which is called the Battle for Singapore, which will have two factions, the Crown and the Empire, battling each other. But if you do not want to get a two-player starter set because you just are interested in your faction alone, you can also get a faction introductory set for both the Empire and the Crown, which is of course a great bit cheaper. The introductory sets will have some dice in there for you to start playing along with templates and everything, but will not have the Command and Conquest deck and will not have the full Armoured Clash rulebook because, well, they have a more simplified level for the rules to get to know the core mechanics first before you fully step into the game, which is why they are called introductory sets. If, however, you like this first taste of the game, you can actually get the other options as well by buying a rulebook, the full rulebook, separately, and get the Command and Conquest deck as well. And if you want to, you can add some more dice to your collection as well, because those are now sold separately as well. But if you're looking for more than just a taste of the game, and you definitely know that you'll be going completely ham with this game, you can get these starter sets. Now the starter sets do include everything, including the rulebook, the Command and Conquest dice, the miniatures, some terrain, etc. as well. And I'll be first going over what is in the two-player starter set, the introductory set rather, and then having a look at the starter sets. Mentioned here are the recommended retail prices, by the way, for each set, and yeah, that doesn't seem too bad, especially the introductory sets at less than £40 for a one-player starter set. That is pretty amazing. And when you think about it, it is pretty awesome that they actually offer what is in the two-player starter set for single players as well, right from the get-go, so you do not necessarily have to find somebody to split a box with, and yeah, that's something quite a few other companies can learn from. A small disclaimer first though, these are the distribution prices, so these are without VAT/sale taxes, so if those apply wherever you live, the prices are going to be slightly higher, but you might have a discount from your favorite retailer as well, so it'll be around this price. The first one is the Battle for Singapore, and that one is themed around a conflict that is taking on in the South Asia Pacific between the Crown and the Empire. Now, what you get in there is seen in this overview shot, which can still be zoomed in a bit, and in case you don't know, these square things here, those are bases of infantry. This is a 10mm game, which means that a man-sized model is going to be roughly anywhere between 10 and 12mm roughly. And also, those are your infantry, and then these are, of course, the tanks, the things that come without bases. And then you have a few oddball units in there as well, such as these dragoons and the robots and everything. These pictures also come with some detailed shots. This is the first one, the Rifle Platoon Commander. You do not get a massive land ship in those are only in the starter sets, but they do come with some resin parts, like this drummer boy here, and this Benedict Arnold, I believe it is, big commander in his, this rather large chap, sitting in a sort of wheelchair. The game is going to revolve around having commander models, which is pretty much the equivalent of a flagship in dystopian wars, and yeah, this is going to be the guy leading your force. On top of that, you also get a bunch of artillery pieces. These are the lighter artillery pieces, the Drake field guns that come along with it. Some of these models are painted, I assume by Daz from Warcradle Studios, and some of them are not yet because, well, you can build quite a few variants with it. One such an example is the Sterling Troop Carrier that is depicted here, which is a tank that is going to ferry your troops into battle, but you can also make an alternate model from it called the Glamis Mobile Gun, which, well, I don't know, might act as a bit of an artillery. We'll have to wait and see when the rules drop. So I'm not exactly sure about what everything does. That is largely speculation on my part at this point. I also do not know if there is a recommended build that comes with the introductory rule sets, but if there is, you'll definitely know first when I get my hands on this set, and you'll see the review from it. I had not seen these models before. These are the Royal Engineers Sappers, and from the looks of it, this looks like a Scottish regiment because they've got these sort of more kilts with the pouches in the front of them. They have a name, I don't know quite exactly what they are called, but if you know, let me know in the comments section below. This is some, well, engineer unit that you can field. Again, not quite sure what it does. These were previewed, these models, as the Spitfire Rocketeers, and there was a paint guide up on tabletop as well on how you can easily paint 10mm scale models. A lot of people will think that it is quite daunting to paint at that scale, but I've actually just finished a bunch of 6mm infantry for Battletech, and let me reassure you, it's actually somewhat easier because you only really need to get your colours right. The next unit are the Sharp Rifles, which to me sort of have a bit of an Australian feel to them with those hats that they're wearing. I imagine these are infantry snipers as well in game, and quite a bit more of your long range option compared to the standard rifle squadrons. Next up is the main battle tank, which is the Galahad medium tank. You can get a variant that looks quite a bit like it, which is the Galahad Breacher. I've been skimming over this model beforehand, and the only difference I can see are the side sponsons, so it's probably going to have a different weapons profile. It's not uncommon for these kits to make multiple variants as well, and one such variant is the Tristan Assault Transport, which allows you to ferry your troops, I imagine, reasonably safe, because, well, this does seem like a bit of a sturdier version to the transport carrier we've seen earlier. Next up we have the Blackwatch Heavy Dragoons, my personal favourite. I do like the look of these, and well, I'm definitely going to have a go at painting some tartan here on the lower leg as well. I might go for a slightly different colour scheme than this, with some grey and green on the actual walker itself, but we'll see about that one. And I was quite pleased to see that it actually has a second variant, one that forgoes the shield for a more aggressive assault dragoon option, which is cool little chain blade on there. So I imagine this is going to be the close combat variant of them, and yeah, they actually got, well, I like them better actually. You also get 5 of these guys, the Horse Guard Cavalry, that come with it. Really cool little models with little flags. I do like the horses. I do think I would paint the entire horse metallic without the red head, but you know, that's something that I'll figure out once I get my hands on these models as well. They look absolutely awesome. And then a bit of more heavy piece, the Mordred Heavy Artillery, which was showcased a while earlier. A big artillery piece to pound your opponent at long range. And it also comes with a variant called the Boars Heavy Bombard. And yeah, I like the gun shield on this one even better, so I think this one also has my preference. And on the Empire side, it's largely Chinese units that you'll find in those because, well, historically in the dystopian age, the Japanese are more the nation that takes care of the naval side of things, which is somewhat confusing because the Chinese ships were the first ones that they released in dystopian wars, so everybody thought that they would be the main naval faction, but it isn't, it's the Japanese. And the Chinese are actually more the land army of them, so you'll see them featured more heavily in Armoured Clash. And things start off with the Green Banner Platoon Commander, which will be your commander unit, of course, for the small introductory set. And then it comes with the Tenshi Light Launchers, which are these sort of, yeah, trikes, if you will, with a bombard on their light launchers, so I imagine they'll be more suited to fragging infantry rather than heavy vehicles. And they also have one with flak options as well, the flak launcher. Now, the aircraft are not yet in the game at the initial release, as I saw, so building the flak launcher at the very start of it is probably not going to be the best option to get started with them, but I do like the fact that it's already coming in there as well. Then you've got the Flame Team, which are these infantry, obviously with flamethrowers, big napalm tanks on the back, and then these flamethrowers held in hand. Absolutely love that one. And it looks like the guys in the back are sort of more there for rearming, because otherwise, well, you need to operate this with 2 people, otherwise you're never going to be able to rearm your napalm in the back. It's going to be slightly awkward if you have to take that backpack off. Similarly, there seems to be a weapon platform, a base that is a rocket platoon where they've got these cool Chinese rocket launchers as well, with the guys in the back carrying the ammunition and doing all of the different reloading. And then as a third option you get a Jezzail team. No, these aren't Ratmen, these are actually the soldiers of the Empire shooting at things from afar with, well, what seems to be a very heavy caliber gun. Now, while I was on vacation, which lasted for quite a long while, so sorry for the content drought, I did see a little interview with James, the new lead developer for the Rules team, saying that the Chinese were sort of a highly specialized type of army where every unit does one thing spectacularly well but is absolutely abysmal in a different role. And well, looking at these weapon teams, I can see what he means now, because yeah, this does seem like a unit that would be absolutely hopeless if it is caught in close quarters combat. Speaking of close quarters combat, you do have the Jianhuren Terracotta Automata. Automata are actually mechanical things in the dystopian age that come sort of pre-programmed with a sort of a weird punch card system built into them, and yeah, that's pretty much what they do for their close combat troops. Big old mechanical elements, and yeah, they're actually significantly larger than the normal infantry, so they're going to be easier to paint as well, but you can easily do them in one color. The other infantry that was never showcased before, as far as I know, is the Bunabang aerial infantry, which is really cool with this sort of wing design and the gas masks on there. It appears to me like they are wielding some sort of flamethrower weaponry, but we'll have to see what the description says when we get those. And as far as tanks go, you get the Fangun medium tank, which which we've seen before. I like this sort of ball shape of it, and there's a second variant that you can get as well, where you're swapping everything out for flame weaponry. I imagine very good at clearing out infantry, but perhaps not the best option to go up against enemy armor. The bigger dog automata, the Tongshi lion automata, are things that we have seen, but I didn't know there was actually a variant with it that seems to come equipped with some rocket launchers as well. The Ryushi lion automata, which I actually think looks even more badass than the other ones. I imagine the other ones are more close combat oriented, and these will take on a role of a long distance artillery piece. In addition, you also get a cavalry unit, sort of in the form of these Jinduyun steam bikes. So these sort of hover bikes that come per two on a base, and then you sort of have to fill in the remainder gap with an empty little disc, which is not uncommon for these types of games as well. You also have some more heavy vehicles. The first is the Fengbao Heavy Launcher, although this one sort of puzzles me a bit because it looks like there's a piece here in the front that isn't quite or needs to be hollowed out or something. I'll have to wait and see until I get my hands on these models for review. But regardless, you can also swap them out with this heavy artillery, the Sanglei heavy artillery, which I imagine is more geared towards taking a punt at armor at long distance. And then finally, in the two-player starter set, you do get some extra terrain as well, which is the Dystopian Wars Industrial set, which I already have a review up on the channel, so if you want to see how this modular system works, definitely check out that video as well. You do not just get one set of templates, it seems, you get two of them, and you'll have to split your dice with your buddy, it seems, but yeah, you can easily buy some more of them if you so desire. And you get 2 sheets of every sort of game marker as well in there, which is handy, so you can split it right down the middle. And the quick start rules also appear to be in, duplicate, so you can actually split it with your opponent, and you don't have to go through one guy having the assembly guides while the other one is left waiting for some pictures by the other guy, so that's really handy. And then finally, it comes with a little booklet called The Battle for Singapore, where if it's in the same style as it was with Dystopian Wars, you get a couple of introduction games where you explore one element of the gameplay and have a couple of simplified missions where they do usually have a suggested build for your models, but I'll look into that more when I get my hands on this box, like I said. And to round everything off, the Occam distribution website also has a bit of a recap here at the bottom with a description of what is going on exactly with the battle for Singapore, but it also has a recap of what it is that you can build exactly. The Crown Army has one commander, of course, and then 6 models in the rifle platoon, so 6 of those bases. You also get 4 Drake field guns, 2 Sterling troop carriers, but you can also make that as that Glamis mobile gun. You might even be able to magnetize it as well if you're handy with those things. You also get 4 Royal Engineer sappers, 4 Spitfire Rocketeer bases, 4 Sharp Rifle bases, and then 2 Galahad medium tanks, but you can make them as Galahad breachers or Tristan assault transports as well. 4 Blackwater Heavy Dragoons, which can also be made into the Assault Dragoons, and then 5 times the Horse Guard Cavalry. These 5 Horse Guard Cavalry are the one that actually puzzles me a bit, because then that must mean that you get 5 of the Horse Cavalry on each base, but you can only have enough to make 2 bases with them, unless of course you got the one surplus model that you can take from each sprue to create these cavalry pieces, so I'm quite curious to see how that goes. And finally, you can also build 2 times a moderate heavy artillery, which can also be built as a Boers heavy bombard. Now, from the looks of it, there was talk in the interview with James that there would be a light sprue and a heavy sprue. And if you divide these numbers by 2, you pretty much end up with what you will get for each and every one of those little sprues, it seems. In other words, you seem to be getting 4 sprues for each faction half, 2 heavies and 2 light sprues. That also explains what you get for the Empire army. You can make 1 commander base, which is made with some resin parts and the plastic parts, and then 8 times a Green Banner platoon, so I imagine 4 of these bases for each sprue, 2 Tanshi light launchers, which is, again, perhaps for the light ones, 4 times the Green Banner flame weapons, the rocket platoons, and the Jezzail teams. You're also able to make 4 bases of the Terracotta infantry, 4 bases of the winged infantry, and then twice the medium tank and twice the heavy launcher. You also get 4 Tongshi Lion automata, and then finally 5 of the jet bikes. Same deal as with the cavalry. I imagine that there will be 5 little models on there that you have to sort of rearrange to create 5 bases in the end. And then if we go back to the different introductory sets, the thing that you'll find is that it will not have any of the scenery in there, and it also looks like you will have fewer action dice in this one as well, and half of the sheets of markers as well, because again, you're supposed to split those right down the middle with your friend that you're splitting the box with. And when it comes to the faction battlegroup starter set, well, let's take the Crown one as an example. If we click on this one and we look at the overview, this pretty much means that you're getting at least twice the content of the introduction set as well in these starter sets, which is pretty amazing. And on top of that, you also get the big landship in there and the terrain pieces as well, which is why this set comes in at around £100. And largely the reasons to get these starter sets, apart from of course getting the rulebook and the deck of cards in there as well, you also get the Sovereign Landship in comparison to what you got in the 2-player starter set. Now the Sovereign Landship is the one that is a command ship that looks a bit more like, I think it's St. Polk's Cathedral in England as well. Really imposing little model. But you can also make this one, which is the Monarch Landship, which is an artillery piece, an artillery model, where you largely swap out the top bit. And knowing the War Cradle resin pieces, this is going to be fairly easy to magnetize as well, should you want to use both variants in your games. Now the one thing I am curious about is, are you going to have a few extra spare soldiers to make those commander bases into introductory sets or not? Because if you get a few spare soldiers, I can imagine that it would look absolutely lovely to have them on these landships as well, sort of as a, well, either defenders of this thing, or to just add a bit more life to them, because at 10mm you can actually add some crew members to your landships as well, and that's what I'm planning to do, at least if I get my hands on these models. Similarly, if we're looking at the Empire faction starter set, it looks like you're getting twice what you get into the introductory set, and in addition also the large resin landship and of course rulebook and the deck of cards. Now, the first version of the landship is the Laoshan landship, which comes with this giant death roller in the front and this really cool flamethrower as well, and this multi-barreled cannon along with some extra side sponsons as well. So I imagine this ship shoots pretty darn hard, and which is kind of neat, at the top here you've seen something which is remarkably similar to a shield generator that we know from Dystopian Wars, so I imagine that is for some additional protection for this landship as well. All of this just screams to me that this is going to be the close combat variant of one, or the one at least that is more aimed at point-blank firepower, while you can also get another variant which is, well, looks like a more artillery-focused ship, which is the Wutai landship. Now from the looks of it, this is also going to use some parts from the tanks, so I imagine you won't be able to make every single variant of the tank if you have to use some of the plastics on these ships. These seem to come from the artillery pieces that we saw for the Chinese, and these seem to be from the flame tanks on the side, so I guess you have to make certain variants. I'll be able to tell you more if I get my hands on these boxes. Needless to say, I do like this variant of the ship. This is just a rolling fortress, isn't it? Especially because the big death roller at the front, which is perhaps not everyone's cup of tea, has been swapped out for 2 additional flamethrowers here, which kind of looks like a Hokyang's, but perhaps a less lethal variant compared to the huge one you see in the top of the vehicle. And then finally, you can also get the Armoured Clash rulebook as well, if you want to read up on the different rules. Even if it's not one of your starter armies, you can still get your hands on a copy of this one if you want. I was given the privilege to proofread this one, and it absolutely was a privilege, because this rulebook looks absolutely amazing. It looks quite a bit better than the earlier versions of Dystopian Wars. A lot of colour everywhere, artwork, a lot of references to other rules, very easy to follow along with, and yeah, definitely a bit of a step up compared to the first version of the Dystopian Wars rulebook. And there you have it, those are the releases that are coming up for this initial release wave for Armoured Clash. I've already spoken to the people at Warcradle Studios, they contacted me, and the good news is that I will be getting a review copy of this one, so if you want to see what that box is like and have an unboxing and review, definitely subscribe to the channel for the future update. That's it for me for now though. I do hope to see you in the next video, and until then, bye!